Forrest Whitaker's depiction of Idi Amin in the famed movie The Last King of Scotland offered the world a view into the life of the little-known Had's boy who would grow to become the president of Uganda. After rising through the ranks of the army and deposing his former ally, Prime Minister Milton Obote, who himself deposed King Fred Edward Mutesa.
Mimi Idi Amin Dada, and I want to promise you, this will be a government of action, not of words.
In his 8-year-long stint at power, he would use force, coercion, murder, and forced exile to bring to heel his allies and foes alike, regardless of creed or race. Idi Amin was known to keep the dismembered heads of his fallen allies in his refrigerator and personally boasted of partaking in ritual cannibalism. In today's episode, we take a deep dive into the controversial life of the self-professed conqueror of the British Empire, Idi Amin Dada. Although Idi Amin died without an autobiography or any official biography, historians pinpoint his birth to have occurred between the years of 1923 and 1928, either in Koboko in central Uganda or in the capital, Kampala. His son, Hussein Amin, however, insists that his father was born in Kampala in 1928. His father was Andreas Nyabire, a Kakwa tribesman who would convert from Roman Catholicism to Islam and would take up the name Amin Dada, a name that he would give his son, Idi Amin. Andreas would abscond when Idi Amin was an infant, prompting the junior to be raised by his mother, Ahasa Hatie, a Lugbara tribeswoman. Ahasa was a renowned healer and witch doctor whose skills and talents earned her a place in the royal court of the Buganda, being a physician for the royalty. Idi Amin studied at an Islamic school in Bombo until the 4th grade, where he dropped out for unknown reasons and would survive by doing odd and menial jobs. It was while at one of these odd jobs at the Royal Hotel in Uganda'S as a concierge that he was to meet a British colonial officer who saw potential in the young Amin and would pull strings to have him drafted into the British Colonial Army. Believe it or not, Idi Amin first joined the British Colonial Army as a cleaner and then an assistant cook. After passing his field exam, he would first see action in 1947 when his regiment was transferred to Gilgil for an assignment that would last until 1949. Later in the same year, they were transferred to Somalia to quell a rebellion, an assignment in which he demonstrated dedication, duty, and brutality. It prompted him to be promoted as a lieutenant upon the regiment's return to Uganda. In 1952, he would return to Kenya as part of the colonial forces deployed to fight against the Kenyan Mau Mau fighters. The dedication and ruthlessness with which he dispensed with his duties would cause him to be promoted to corporal and then sergeant in 1953. In 1959, Idi Amin achieved the highest rank possible for an African in the British Colonial Army, that is the rank of an Effendi Class 2, an equivalent of a warrant officer. An ardent polygamist, Idi Amin married at least 6 women in his lifetime, fathering over 60 children. His first wives, Maliamu Amin and Kay Amin, were married in 1966. In 1967, he married Nora Amin. He would marry Nalongo Medina in 1972. In 1975, he would stage a lavish wedding to mark his marriage to 19-year-old Sarah Cholaba, who was a go-go dancer in Kampala. The wedding, which cost £2 million, was a lavish affair, with Yasser Arafat, Idi Amin's longtime friend and ally, being the best man. Despite their earlier close relationship, a rift would develop between Idi Amin Dada and Milton Obote, especially when the former started filling the ranks of the army with Kakwa and Lubara tribesmen who would be loyal to him and not the premier or the government of Uganda. Their relationship was further exacerbated by several attempts on the life of Milton Obote, some of which, it was said, Idi Amin was complicit in, or in the least aware of, but chose not to warn Obote. In response, Obote took charge of the army, demoting Idi Amin, whom he had previously promoted to the rank of Commander of all the armed forces of Uganda, and setting in motion an investigation that would lead to the arrest of Idi Amin for misappropriation of army funds. Idi Amin would, however, catch wind of this plot and would instead launch another coup, this time against his former ally Milton Obote, while the latter was in Singapore attending a Commonwealth conference. Idi Amin formed a military council to rule the country, for which he was the chairman, and he would rule by decree. He implemented the formation of the State Research Bureau, an intelligence agency that would effect torture and capital punishments, alongside the Public Safety Unit and the military police that were given carte blanche on the maintenance of law and order in the country. Early in his reign, he also instituted a set of economic policies known as the Economic War. Under this policy, Idi Amin expelled up to 80,000 Ugandan Asians who are first-generation citizens, having been born in the country but with parents from other parts of the British Empire.
Would you like to get all Asians out, really, sir?
Yes, they must go to their country.
Even nationals of Uganda?
If they want to go, they are welcome to go.
He would also harass other foreigners, including dignitaries and consular officials from Europe and the Americas, demanding that all foreigners kneel or bow while addressing him, and moving by being carried by 4 Caucasians. For a time, Idi Amin was able to keep a tight lid on the mismanagement and maltreatment of his local population. The lid was, however, blown off with the international PR disaster that was Operation Entebbe. On the 27th of June 1976, terrorists hijacked a plane departing from Tel Aviv and destined for Paris. The terrorists, who were affiliated to a Palestinian Liberation Organization, took charge of the plane with 248 passengers, demanding $5 million in exchange for the release of the plane and the release of over 40 arrested Palestinian militants. When it became apparent that Idi Amin, a close ally of Yasser Arafat, the leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, would be unwilling to intervene on the matter, the Israeli government initiated Operation Thunderbolt, also known as Operation Entebbe, to rescue the hostages. The operation would happen in the cover of darkness, involving 100 Israeli commandos, who, over the course of the operation, killed all the hijackers alongside 45 Ugandan soldiers. 11 Ugandan military aircraft were also destroyed in the process. The Mossad would suffer one casualty, being Yonatan Netanyahu, the older brother of Israel's future Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The final nail in Idi Amin's presidential coffin would be his attempted assassination of his vice president, Mustafa Adrisi. Adrisi enjoyed popular support among a large bulk of the army as well as civilians. On hearing the news of Adrisi's survival of the attempted assassination, soldiers loyal to him spread over the border to Tanzania, where they would receive support from the armed forces of the government of Tanzania as Tanzania's President Julius Nyerere's response to Uganda's announced invasion of Tanzania. Forces loyal to Adrisi and the Tanzanian army managed to steadily push back Ugandan troops into Kampala. Noting how precarious his position was, Idi Amin moved his headquarters to Kenya before he finally departed to Libya, where he was housed by his ally, Muammar Gaddafi, until 1980. Gaddafi would later arrange passage for Idi Amin and his family to Saudi Arabia, where he would be housed by the royal family of Saudi Arabia and given a decent stipend. in exchange for staying out of political life. Albeit the economy collapsed at the beginning of his reign, Idi Amin's actions did demonstrate efforts towards the Africanization of business and the promotion of local business and talent. Understanding the complexities of his reign allows us to appreciate both the good and the bad. By presenting a fair and unbiased account of his rule, we hope to create a deeper understanding of this complex historical figure, that is, Idi Amin Dada.